These are the keys to proper nail prep. Prepping the nail details what you do to prepare for nail enhancements. So let's get into it. I'm going in with my cuticle pusher and pushing all the dead skin back so that I can detach it from the nail plate. After that, I'm grabbing my drill and the bit I use for sanding bands. I like to use fine sanding bands because I'm putting it on the natural nail plate. These are 180 grit buffing bands. I start from one side wall and work my way to the other, applying very, very light pressure just to push everything back and clean off the nail as well. Make sure to keep the nail bit parallel to the nail so that you do not create a ring of fire or indents in the nail. I do this part thoroughly so I can make sure I am revealing as much of the nail bed as possible and removing all of the shine that I see. My next step is applying tips. It's very important to make sure your tips fit sidewall to sidewall and rest comfortably on the nail. So right here we have an example of a nail tip that is too small. I had to use more pressure to get it to fit sidewall to sidewall, and if you look, it does not go completely sidewall to sidewall. That can cause the nails to break off at the sides and not be as strong. So next I'm going to show you a tip that's too big. The tip sits on the nail comfortably, but it goes well over both sidewalls. In some cases you can use a large tip, but you have to make sure you cut it evenly to the sidewalls. Okay, so now we're going in the tip that fits just right. It sits comfortably on the nail, and when you turn the nail, you see it goes sidewall to sidewall. Because of this, we can ensure that our nails are not going to pop off because it's too small or lift easily because it's too big. Once you get the right nail tip size, you can get your glue. I like to use the KDS nail glue. I get this from Amazon. Make sure you do not use a lot of glue so that you flood the nail and it doesn't dry fully. And then make sure you use enough nail glue so that the glue is going from sidewall to sidewall and there are no air bubbles in the way. I wait about 10 to 12 seconds to make sure it's fully glued down. It's important to make sure it is glued entirely because you want a seamless transition from the nail to the tip. Sometimes I like to go in and make sure the top of the nails are as secure as the bottom. And if it's lifted too much, I just cut them off. It's easier that way. I usually have this problem if maybe I tilt the nail whenever I apply the tip or if the nail tip is very thick. But it's an easy fix. As you can see, the nail tip is lifted on the right side, so I just go in and snip that off, and I make sure that the nail tip is still lined up perfectly with the side walls because that's the most important part. We were going to blend it in anyways. Okay, so now for the cuticles. Okay, so now I'm going in and removing the cuticles that I lifted up and removing all the dead skin that I see attached to the nail plate. I'm using a set of nippers from Amazon. They're very sharp, not dull at all, which is good because then it won't tug on the skin and cause any slips. Cutting the cuticle does take extra practice, I believe. You have to be able to see and differentiate the non-living skin from the living skin so that you do not cut your clients. So, in my opinion, if you are a beginner, I do not think you should try to cut as much cuticle as you can. Cut what you can see, cut what's lifted, and cut what you know is cuticle. Alright, so the next step we're going to do is go in and cut your tip to your client's desired length. During this step, I like to make sure that all nail tips are the same, and I line the nail beds up from cuticles to make sure they're all the same length. Using the magnet method, sometimes you will not get the same length, so you have to be very careful when using that. When doing this step, cut the tip as accurately as possible because yes, you can make them shorter, but you cannot make them longer. After cutting your tip, go ahead and shape your tip to whichever shape you're doing. So I'm just doing a square nail, so I'm just going to touch up the free edge and make sure the sides line up with the sidewall. Because like I said, that's very important. If you don't take anything from this, make sure the sidewalls are good. And by going underneath the nail, this is me making sure that it's not on the skin anywhere and it's only attached to the nail plate. And when shaping the nail tips, I don't do too much because you are going to file it more after you apply the acrylic. So I just get it to my desired shape, but nothing more, nothing less. Okay, so I'm going in with my cuticle nippers again to get rid of this pesky dead skin that I can obviously see lifting. If I put acrylic over that, it's not going to lay right and it's going to lift immediately. So I just wanted to dig and make sure I got that out. I am not hurting my client because I am making sure that my nippers are touching the dead skin only. So once again, I go back in with my Melody Susie drill and I'm using the 180 grit sanding band. And I do what I did in the beginning, pushing the cuticles back. This time I'm cleaning up all of the dead skin again and I'm blending the tips as well. Be very light when you use this. Use very light pressure. By doing this, I'm cleaning up the nail and creating a smooth, seamless base for me to apply my acrylic. Make sure you're keeping your bit parallel to the nail so you are not causing any indentions or creating any burning. Once everything is blended and cleaned, I like to remove all of the dust from the nails and the fingers. After brushing all the debris off the nail, getting all the dust, I go in with my lint-free wipe. That's very important so it doesn't leave any residue or any lint on the nail. Spray it with alcohol and wipe it very thoroughly. I know my prep is good when the nail comes out smooth, clean, just like this. I like to go in after the alcohol and get my nail prep from Mia Secret. And I use that as my dehydrator. I put it over the nail bed one time. Make sure to get up in those crevices and get all over the nail. And then I get my extra bond from Mia Secret because I like to use pairs. I feel like everything works better in pairs. And I apply this twice. That is a huge secret. I apply this twice over the whole entire nail. Make sure to cover everything and get the prep and dehydrator all over the nail. After that, make sure your client does not touch anything, doesn't get any lint on it, and you're good to apply your acrylic.